Hello, this is an example of how to use the bus stop method to do a division. Now, this is actually from part of my walkthrough for the AQA examination board in England. It's foundation level and it's taken from the paper 1 in November 2018. Paper 1 for AQA is a non-calculator paper. They have 3 papers. First one is non-calculator, and then the other 2 you are allowed to use a calculator. Now, when it's a non-calculator paper, you need to make sure that you know how to do things like divide, multiply, add, subtract. You know how to work with fractions and decimals and percentages and do those by hand. So I had a request from somebody on my Natematics page yesterday about how do I do the bus stop method. So I thought, now's the time to actually record that for you now. So I'm going to use a real life example from an exam paper. So a helicopter blade does 3,206 full turns in 7 minutes. Work out the number of full turns per minute. Now, I'm not going to go through the kind of how can we work out what we need to do, because I've already told you it's a division, okay? So what we're doing is splitting that 3,206, which is kind of for 7 minutes, and we're going to say for each minute what happens. So we're going to split it by minutes. What assumption are we making when we're doing that, when we're dividing by 7? We're assuming that actually they do the same number of blades each minute. So it's almost like it does 3,206 in 7 minutes. We are assuming on average it does this number per minute, because it might be shorter, it might be less in the first minute, might be more in the middle maybe, but it's a real life assumption that we're making. And I always like to kind of encourage these thought processes around maths questions, really, because, you know, at the end of the day, pretty much everything has a real life context to it. Right, so bus stop method, the number that we are dividing into, as in we are dividing something into 7 pieces. So that goes on the outside. The number that we're wanting to split up goes under the bus stop. So quite often people will put down like the 3,206 first, put the bus stop over it, and then the 7 on the outside. But it is that we're splitting 3,206 into 7 pieces. So each one of those, how many turns are there going to be in each of those minutes? And again, always think about what that bus stop thing means in terms of the context of the question. Really, really important. So in terms of the method then, well, what I highly suggest you do is, if you've got to divide by 7, you are going to have to be knowing your times table, your 7 times table. And how many times would you then be saying, okay, so how many 7s are there? And I'm going to go da, 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 da. How many 7s are there in? And you're going da, 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 da. So unless you know the numbers off by heart, which I highly recommend that you practice them, especially if you've got a non-calculator paper. If not, just write them out the side of your paper once. Yeah, if you think, okay, I can do that quite quickly, so then I've only got to do that once, and I can just refer to that list when I'm doing my division. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to say, well, how many 7s are there in 3? Now I know, and I'm going to mention this again as well, because of, you know, the nature of my job. I want to make sure I'm telling you as much as I can. That 3 isn't 3. That 3 is 3,000. So we're saying how many 7s are there in 3,000? But in order to kind of sort of break it down, what we're doing is we're just literally looking at that digit. So how many 7s are there in 3? Well, there's not even a whole 7 in 3, so it's 0. So then what we do is we carry that 3 onto the 2. So that's 200. So we're now saying how many 7s are there in 3,200? Oh, 32, just for the digits sense. So how many 7s are there in 32? Well, we can go down our list. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so there's 4 in 28, but not quite enough for the 35. So there are 4 7s in 32. What is the remainder? So how much further have I got to go from 28, which is the 4, up to what I wanted, which was 32? So it's 28, 32, take away 28, you get a remainder of 4. So that 4 carries forward to the next digit. So we're saying we've actually got a remainder of 400, because that's 4 in that column. So it's a remainder of 400. So then we're saying, for the purpose of actually working this out, how many 7s are there in 40? Actually, it's 400, but 40. So let's have a look then. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not quite enough for 6. So we've got 5. So we'll put 5 on the top. What's the remainder? So, well, I've got 5 7s are 35. I needed 40, so I've got a remainder of 5. And that goes on to the next number. So then finally, how many 7s are there in 56? And this is 56 now. How many 7s are there in 56? Well, you go down there and you'll see it is 8. Is there any remainder? No, because I wanted to know how many 7s were in 56, and exactly 8 7s are 56. So there's no remainder at all. So that is the most simple kind of division using the bus stop method. So we look at each digit, and does the number outside divide into the number underneath the bus stop method, and we go from left to right. If it doesn't, that next digit goes and carries forward to the next one. And what I've done is I've put like a little number there to sort of carry it forward. And then we say how many 7s are in 32. But again, just being mindful of it's 3,200, because the answer is actually 4, which is 400. And I think it's really, I mean, I know certainly in primary schools nowadays, they tend to teach a lot more about numeric understanding, like that 4. It's not 4, it's 400. But it's just, again, it's that kind of putting things into context. And I often I'm quite often torn between making sure you properly understand what you're doing, and this is a method. If it gets you through it, do it. Okay. So, you know, I appreciate not everyone's going to understand things at a certain level. However, at this point, I'm saying, not saying they couldn't eventually. So yeah, it really depends on the student how I would teach them that. So there you go, bus stop method where there is no remainder. And now I'm going to record another one for you where, I'm just going to find the pause button now, where there will be a remainder. So hold on, and it'll be coming straight after this. If this is all you wanted, you can press stop now and carry on with the rest of your day. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Okay, so here is your question, which is showing how we will do a bus stop method division, but where the answer isn't a whole number. So when you get to the end of that last digit, which is a 3, oh, I've got a remainder. What do I do? Okay, so what we're going to do is, remember from before, what we do is we put the 563 inside that bus stop, because we're splitting that into 4. So we're saying if there are 4, if we were to split this into 4 piles, 4 people, whatever that 4 represents, how much will there be in each one? Now, 4 is one of those ones that you can kind of do a lot by your head, can't you? You can kind of like divide by 2, halve it, and then halve that again to do by 4. However, I'm going to show you the bus stop method for this and what we do when the answer is not a whole number. Okay, so here we are, 563. So step number 1 is, and I've put these on the screen this time, is how many 5s are there in 4? Sorry. How many 4s are there in 5? Or what is 5 divided by 4? I wanted to do them both in those ways so you can see how we talk about it. So how many 4s are there in 5? Well, there is 1. So again, it's 5 things. How many 4s are there? Well, it's 1 4, and I've got 1 left over. So that 1 goes in front of the next digit to the 6th, which is effectively 60. So we are saying how many 4s are there in 16, or 16 divided by 4. Now, if you know your 4 times table, you'll know that is 4. On this one, I didn't write down my 4 times table, or the multiples of 4 on the right-hand side. But like I said, if it's something that you're not that familiar with, a times table or the multiples, just put them down once. So you only have to do it the once. If it's going to take you a long time to do it, maybe think against that one, maybe. But anyway, we'll get practicing them. So the next one is, how many 4s are there in 3? Or what is 3 divided by 4? Well, if I've only got 3 things, I can't even get a whole 4 out of that. Now, some of you may say, well, it's actually 3/4. But we'll continue this division. We'll continue this division as we go through. So it's not that we can't do 3 divided by 4, because actually If you did your calculator, you would know that 3 divided by 4 is 3/4, which is 0.75. When we're doing the bus stop method, we are looking for whole numbers to put on the top here. If there isn't a whole number, we have to carry that, whatever we're dividing into, to the next column. Okay, because I know some people will say, well, you can't. Some people will say, well, you can't divide 3 by 4. You can divide any number by any number, but it depends on what answer comes out, obviously. Anyway, let's move on to this then. So we've still got that 3 as a remainder, but there's no digits after it to put that in front of as like a, carrying forward. That's okay. Well, what we can do is we can just extend our line, and we can put what I suppose we would call a convenient place value, so 0 there, because we're not changing the value of 563. We're just changing how it looks, i.e. 563.0. It's still the same number. We're just allowing for the fact that actually the answer isn't going to be a whole number. There's going to need to be point something in there. Okay, so we, as before, we carry the remainder forward to the next place value, so the 0, and we say, well, how many 4s are there in 30? 30 divided by 4. There are 7. 7 4s are 28. So that gives a remainder of 2. Oh, there's no 0 there to put it in front of. Okay, let's put 1 there then. Okay, that's all we need to do. So then last one is how many 4s are in 20? Or 20 divided by 4 is 5, with no remainder. So the answer to 563 divided by 4 is 140.75. And if obviously this is a calculator paper, you'd literally just do your calculator and do 563 divided by 4, and you would get your answer. And I'm just going to show this. I'm going to stop sharing now so you can see this. So if I did 563 divided by 4, you can see that it comes out as a fraction. Now, there's a button there called S to D. What that does is it changes it from sort of like the accurate answer to a decimal. So you can literally alternate between them. So you can go back to the decimal, back to the fraction, and then you come to the decimal. So again, just something else to sort of think about when it's a calculator paper. I always say to people, when it's a calculator paper, use your calculator. There's no extra marks if you do it in your head or you do it on paper manually. The only thing that happens is you have less time to use on the real sort of problem solving. Leave your calculator for doing the actual physical calculations. Okay, I'm going to be recording some more now on things like multiplication, subtractions, looking at negative numbers, all the sort of basics around numbers. So keep your eye out. And if you want to be a member of Maths Club and you want to see what the masterclasses are between now and the GCSEs, pop me a message at natalie@natematics.co.uk. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.